The man wrapped the wire around the MP3 player. Seeing the sheriff approach, he held the MP3 between two fingers. The sheriff, displeased, was about to make a move when the man suddenly grabbed his hand and punched him in the throat. Seeing the woman being bullied, the man struck the sheriff on the head again, knocking him unconscious. The man put the ashtray in his pocket, unplugged the telephone cord, and walked out the door with the woman. Just then, an officer entered the room to check, and the man quickly smashed the ashtray into him. He wrapped the telephone cord around his hand and slowly headed for the door. When another officer was about to draw his gun, the man quickly fought back. The man disassembled the officer's rifle and pulled the woman along as they continued forward. The man's name was Matthew, a retired Special Forces soldier. That day, he had just arrived in a small town when a patrol officer stopped him for a search. Matthew was carrying a military knife, which made the two policemen nervously draw their weapons. Matthew said he had a permit to carry the knife, but the police immediately handcuffed him and said they were taking him to the station. Seeing that Matthew didn't move, the police immediately threatened him with guns. Matthew then began walking toward the car, but one of the officers took the opportunity to attack him from behind. However, Matthew only gave him a fierce glare. At the police station, Matthew was locked inside a metal cage. The officer, annoyed by Matthew's arrogant attitude, struck him with a bat, but Matthew endured it. The officer pushed further, charging up a stun baton and jabbing it toward Matthew. Matthew slammed his head into the officer's chest, and the two were just about to throw punches when another cop burst in, saying the sheriff wanted to see Matthew. That interruption spared the officer from a beating. The sheriff had learned that Matthew was a retired Special Forces soldier and did indeed have a valid knife permit, so he told him he was free to go. Picking up Matthew's MP3 player, the sheriff sneered. Still listening to this kind of music? Matthew walked out of the station, but suddenly remembered his MP3 was still in the sheriff's hands. He went back to the office, only to find the sheriff harassing a woman. The sheriff barked at him to get out, hurling insults. That's when we get to the opening scene, Matthew beating the sheriff senseless. Matthew left with the woman but ended up barging into the room of the officer who had beaten him earlier. Matthew snapped into combat mode. One last top knee to end the fight. They headed for the emergency exit, only to run into the deputy chief. Matthew quickly knocked him out, then made his way down the stairs. More officers appeared along the way, but Matthew took each one of them down. Then, the two stepped outside, asked a nearby officer for a cigarette, and walked away. Meanwhile, the police inside the station were beginning to regain consciousness. Can Matthew escape the police?